When you are prioritising grappling, it can often seem unachievable to have the physique in which you have always wanted. This was exactly the point of view of Thomas, brown belt in BJJ, grappled for about 10 years. He tried keto diet, he tried low carbs, he tried all of these different measures that resulted in him destroying his performance on the mat. He actually came to me wanting to get rid of his shoulder injury. After we sorted the shoulder out, his mission quickly turned into this: getting to 10% body fat. It's important that you get a few things right on the setup of this, and in this video I'm going to take you through everything we did, my thought process during each stage as his coach, so you can literally copy and paste what Thomas did and walk exactly the same path that he did and get the same results that he did. The internet sometimes is a very wonderful thing. So what I'm covering today is his mission, what we had to achieve in order to execute that mission, his background info, his meal plan rules in which I set in place for him, and then the overall strategy outline. So his mission, he was down in the dumps. There was no shadow of a doubt. He was borderline depression because he couldn't lift his elbow to shoulder height without his shoulder locking. It gave him an 8 out of 10 pain. He's downloaded one of my free shoulder resources to give him a little bit of relief in his symptoms, and he's thought, you know what, if that was free, imagine what this bloke can do for me if I pay him. Anyway, he's jumped on my program and we've built him a priority rehab strategy. However, his secondary mission was to get rid of this body fat that he struggled to get rid of. Because, like I said previously, anything that he tried in the past completely destroyed his performance. And you don't want to destroy your performance because we want to feel good. It's not meant to feel horrible. So it required a little bit of education, right? But more importantly, right, this is a long-term mission. This is a serious mission. He wanted his ability, his body, to burn carbs really effectively instead of looking at a carbohydrate and storing it as fat. He wanted to be able to use carbohydrates really effectively. So this was a metabolism rebuild mission, right? So what we had to do was an injury rehab and a full body recomposition mission, right? What I mean by recomposition is he wanted to build muscle, build strength, build performance on the mats while losing fat, right? So what that required is high performance mindset, both lifting and on the mats and with regards to nutrition and the training to follow that. Most part whole foods, nutrient dense options only, for the most part that is. And we introduced some off the mat cardio. So we had to train really well. And this is all achievable for everybody that's watching this video. And for example, Signs, he had knee surgery a few years ago, and the downward spiral that put him on, he actually gained 35 kilograms of fat as a result of that knee surgery and the impact that had on his mental health. He wasn't willing to let this happen again. And there's a lot of people that get injured that use it as an excuse to have a cheesecake every night. And he had been that person, and he wasn't happy to continue being that person. He's got kids. He's not happy about it. He basically came to me to raise his personal standards and help him maintain them through thick and thin. And everything that we talk about on this video is going to make sure that you can do that as well. So for those that are new to the channel, my name is Paul Green. I'm a former British paratrooper and Special Forces Support Group operator, physical training instructor in the Army, trained thousands of elite soldiers. Now, I train men of extreme sporting endeavours, mostly grapplers, because I'm a grappler myself, 7 years of grappling experience. But you can see a lot of people come to me for injuries. However, when the injuries are sorted, it then moulds itself into other missions. Thomas was no different, and yeah, let's talk about Thomas. Remember, this is a fueling video. I'm talking predominantly about his fueling. So the background info of Thomas, very important stuff. He is a father, he is a business owner, and he is a brown belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I am not a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu coach. I'm only a guide with regards to the mats, comp prep and stuff like that. But off the mats is where I take my area of expertise. He started at 83.7 kilograms at 24% body fat. You've seen the pictures. And he had a shoulder injury, limiting his training. The main limitation this had at the early start of the program was he couldn't do pressing movements until we sorted the shoulder out. So it affected his training split. That previous injury and the pattern was self-destruct with a limitation. However, we worked on that. And also his body fat and how his body coped with carbohydrates, not really using them effectively as energy, storing them as fat on the regular basis. So he wanted to rewire his metabolism, rewire his body so that he wasn't in that fat storing state, making it really difficult for him to lose body fat. So before we started, right, I obviously mentioned the shoulder rehab. What I do is I send them out a shoulder functions test, conducts a shoulder functions test with videos, points to where his symptoms are, tells me the symptoms on a pain rating on a scale of 1 to 10. Then I build his shoulder rehab around them videos. Very important for me. However, the patterns, the mindset stuff, the education, I needed to know the previous things he had done to try and lose weight. So I actually used to grapple with this bloke in Yateley at BJJ, and I remember him coming at the mat, and I remember him saying, "Oh yeah, I'm doing this keto thing," and he was in absolute tatters on the mat. He had no energy, miserable, no banter. You know, losing a little bit of weight, yeah, okay. You can't sustain that. So I knew that he had a few things that he used to try previously to try and lose weight, because he wanted to lose weight, but he just couldn't stick to something that worked for him for long enough, right? So it was my highest priority to make sure that he could stick to this easily. He actually enjoyed consuming these meals. And in order for me to do that, I need his photos and I need his scale weight to start to build everything out. And I also need his preferences, his food preferences as well. Because if you don't enjoy what you're eating, you're not going to stick to it. It might sound simple, but it doesn't need to be food that you don't enjoy. You can eat your favourite carbohydrate choices, your favourite protein choices, your favourite fruit and veg, your favourite salad. You can, right? And the only thing I do is I dictate the portion sizes. So the most important thing, right, is this mindset. It's a high performance mindset. And it's what I mean by that is you and your weight loss mission can absolutely still develop your performance if you time your meals correctly. Most people that go on weight loss missions do so by destroying their performance. And a couple of weeks later, they realise how much their performance is struggling, and they give up because of that destruction of performance. If you adopt this high performance mindset and actually start focusing on improving your performance, as a byproduct of that, you kind of take one eye off the weight loss mission, and you're focusing on building muscle, building strength, building power, and enjoying the benefits on the mat because you've got high energy. And because you're focusing so much on performance, the weight loss becomes a byproduct of that if you get the strategy right, which is what we do. So I just need you to understand that most people that go on a weight loss mission go all in on the weight loss mission, and they absolutely destroy their performance. That pattern usually leads to them giving up after about a month or so. But those that see it through lost that much performance in the process. They feel like shit. So then they think, well, what was the point? Very important that you acknowledge what I've just said, because it's so important that you just make the switch. You can develop your performance while losing fat if you get the numbers right. For those of you that are interested in the numbers, you are interested in what I'm saying, there's a link in the description, the top link, and that is for my full fuel resource. It basically takes you through a step-by-step guide in order to make these numbers and build your own meal plan, your own high-performance meal plan, off your own preferences. If you prefer it, then you will stick to it for longer, getting better results. And that is my number one goal with regards to that resource. So get that downloaded and reap the benefits of that. It's exactly what I do with my clients. So the rules of the meal plan. Eat this food every day. Pretty simple. If you want to make a swap, then make a swap. Just look at the numbers. However, I don't get them to count calories. I just get them to weigh their food, weigh themselves daily, and take photos of themselves in the same lighting every week. High performance is always the priority, right? Because we want to develop our strength, develop our muscle mass while losing fat. If we lose fat and there is no muscle to show for it at the end of that journey, what the fuck's the point? If we lose all this fat and we haven't got any mat time performance at the end of that, what is the point? So then why would you ever go on a weight loss mission if it wasn't worth it? So it's important you do this right. So the high performance mindset and high performance is actually the priority, should be the priority. And what happens as a result of that, because you're priding yourself in performance, you have high output rather than low output. And you can eat more food, right? So for the most part, it's nutrient-dense whole foods, which means you're actually eating a lot of food. Winner, winner. Freedom on the meal plans. He had the freedom to adjust the lean protein sources. If he wanted to eat chicken and not beef, he could eat chicken. He could swap. He could eat turkey. He could eat white fish. He has the freedom because it doesn't have to be set in stone. Also freedom to adjust the carbohydrate sources. Now there's a little caveat to the carbohydrate sources because fibrous carbohydrates take a longer time to digest. So eating highly refined carbohydrate choices should be done only when you're training close to that consuming that meal, right? So there is a little caveat to carbohydrate choices. However, I explain that on the resource if you want it. Okay, so the meal plan he started on, because he was grappling that much, grappling like 6 times a week, and he was in the gym lifting 4 times a week, I had him on 8,000 steps initially, was this. This is 3,000 calories, by the way, right? And you might think, fucking hell, Greenie, why are you feeding him this much on his first... Listen, his output was really high, so it was important that I give him the right amount of food. So meal 1, and again, with all my clients and with you, it should make sense to eat this food in a day. However, the actual meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, meal 4, the snacks, all of the order of these meals is entirely up to you. It's very important that you acknowledge the fact that there is a little bit of an art to the timing of your meals. For example, this bloke in particular trained on a morning, right? So it's important that he moved these meals around in order to facilitate his weightlifting session on the morning. You can eat healthy, but if you don't time your meals correctly, they won't be serving you for what you need from them during that time of the day. For example, let me use me as an example here. I don't eat carbohydrates. I don't even think about eating carbohydrates until I'm thinking about physical demands. For example, a weightlifting training session or a jiu-jitsu session. Before my jiu-jitsu session, I'm thinking about carbohydrates 2-3 hours before. When I'm working, when I'm doing my videos and I'm attending my clients and stuff like that, I've probably only consumed fats and proteins because I don't want the spike of blood sugar. I don't want to feel hungry. I want to be stable and mentally alert and do my work. I call this brain foods and body foods. Brain and body, the separation. Brain is high fats, high proteins. Body is carbohydrates, right? So surrounding your training sessions with carbohydrates maintains high performance. So make sure that you have the intelligence to reorder a meal plan to work for you as best as possible based off what you are doing in a day. For example, if you're sat behind in an office for 6-7 hours of the day and then you train on a night, you need to make sure the carbohydrates are always surrounding your training session. Because if they're not, high performance isn't achieved, you don't develop your physical capabilities. Then you get less motivated as the months go on, then you give up, and then you think, what was the point? It sounds so small, but it's so important. Right. Meal 1, oats, tablespoons of peanut butter, protein powder, mixed berries, water. Meal 2, 100 grams of white rice, 150 grams of chicken breast, 150 grams of mixed salad, hot sauce. Pre-lifting, Notice I didn't say pre-jiu-jitsu, pre-lifting. Don't really need carbohydrates before jiu-jitsu. It's a luxury. It's not necessarily needed. 60 grams of oats, 20 grams of jam. Post-lifting, 2 bananas, protein powder, water. Meal 3, 200 grams of pasta sauce, 80 grams of pasta, 150 grams of lean beef, 150 grams of mixed veg. Meal 4, 200 grams of low-fat yogurt, 150 grams of mixed berries, 30 grams of dark chocolate. Right? Pretty straightforward. But like I say, you can follow any meal plan. However, if you're not timing the meals correctly, that it's not going to serve you. Because I know people that eat healthy foods that feel like shit because they're timing them terribly. So everything has to have a justification. So the overall strategy, obviously, started on that. But when his weight doesn't drop, we make a change. And the first change I make is increase output. I don't reduce food. So he's still on 3,000 calories on week 3. Right? I've added 20 minutes of extra cardio daily. His weight's then dropped off. I've then changed his steps to 10,000. It's got to week 7 and I've made my first calorific adjustment. He's still eating that much food for that long. I've reduced it from 3,000 to 2,500. It drops down again, a couple of kilos. So in total, we're talking nearly a 6 kilogram drop off in 8 weeks. His metabolism's starting to really enjoy the nutrients in which he's getting. His training is flying. His strength numbers in the gym are flying. Right? But there's hurdles. It's never plain sailing. That first few weeks there was plain sailing. Right? But it's not always like that. And the second half of this journey, you will see. So week 9 to week 13, it kept fluctuating in between 78 and 77. Right? And this was mega frustrating for him. But patience, and remember, shifting the focus. Is his numbers in the gym increasing? Yes. Well, he's building muscle. Sometimes your weight will stay the same even though you are losing body fat, right? So week 9 and week 13, that fluctuation was happening, which is a long time to be staying the same weight. Very frustrating time period. Week 14 to week 17, he got a BJJ injury. He tweaked his knee, right? So what happened as a result of that? His steps were massively reduced, almost close to 0, right? So he's literally burning 350 calories less per day, and he couldn't do any cardio for a few weeks, right? So I had to reduce his calories right down to account for that reduced output. Weeks 18 to 19, he dropped to 76 because he could start cycling. So I've left him on 1,800, but still barely any steps. But the weight did move down, which was great. Weeks 20 was Christmas. He went back up to 78 because I give him 2 days off plan for Christmas Day and Boxing Day. January 2026, weeks 21 to 24. I've literally said, mate, you've crept up a little bit over Christmas. Let's get it off. I've reduced his calories to 1,600, knowing the fact that he's still not doing any steps. However, I had him on 60 minutes of daily cardio during these weeks. And then we got him down. So we got him down to that 10% mark. And then week 25 plus is starts a 4 to 6 week reverse diet back to maintenance. So once we get him to 10% body fat and he's absolutely shredded, it's important that we reverse him out of that deficit back to maintenance in a structured manner, because your body is very vulnerable, in a very vulnerable state. It's literally like being a newborn baby. It just literally absorbs everything. So we need to make sure that it's absorbing the right foods in order for him to maintain being shredded. Do you know what I mean? I'll do a separate video on the reverse. So where he is now, he's 10% body fat and he's absolutely shredded. His metabolism has been completely rebuilt brick by brick. His body now craves carbs and uses them so well as fuel. And now he's reversing back out of his diet to maintenance. Part of the reverse as well, we reduced the cardio back down to, we half his cardio. So now he's got less fatigue. He can actually push the numbers more in the gym. We straight away, week 1 of the reverse, we give him 100 grams extra of oats per day. And now he's on week 2 of the reverse, where we have increased his rice, and we've added in 50 grams of raisins as well. So now he's sitting on about 2,200, and he feels unbelievable, because now he's got all of this with the added superpowers of the right types of nutrients, the right types of carbohydrates. And now his split, because I talked to him about this yesterday, he's now 57% of his overall allocation of food is carbohydrates. So that is Thomas. Hopefully you appreciate his fueling strategy breakdown. Absolutely 100% copy this approach, copy the concept in which I'm talking about, how I problem solve, into your own training, because he's walked the path with an injury. So that means it is absolutely possible for you to walk the path without an injury, right? You've got everything you need to do it yourself. If you want me to help you do it on a one-to-one basis, the second link in the description is to work with me on a one-to-one basis.